Okay, everyone. So today we'll be looking at. Okay, everyone. So today we'll be continuing to look at verbs and picking up with tense, which is section 15 of chapter 2. And so yeah, we're just gonna dive in, picking up where we left off. So in addition to mood and voice, you were already introduced to. So in addition to mood and voice, a Greek verb is also said to have tense. So now you have three things, right? One, you have squiggly. What's going on? One second. So one, you have mood. Two, you have it's very squiggly. It's very jumpy. I'm not sure why. My trusty little pen is a bit jumpy. So one, you have mood. Two, you have voice, VOICE. And three, now you are introduced to tense, right? Pen is a little squiggly. I think it's because the charger is plugged in, but we'll work with it for now. So MVT, you have mood, voice, and tense. The tenses in Greek are the present, future, imperfect, aorist, pronounced to the aorist, AIR, perfect, pluperfect, future perfect. The present, future perfect, and future perfect are sometimes called primary, right, or principal tenses, while the imperfect, aorist, and pluperfect are sometimes called secondary or historical tenses. In the indicative mood, the usual English equivalents of these tenses are as follows. So let's look at it a little bit more in depth, right? So first, you have the present tense. Now, we understand present tense in English, right? It's an active action. So I love or I am loving. I am the one that is doing the loving, right? In the passive voice, I am being loved, meaning I am receiving. RECEIVING. I am the one receiving I'm receiving the love, right? I am the one here giving the love, right? Give love on Christmas Day, right? Give love. Da, 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 da. All right. Future tense, I will, meaning I haven't loved yet, but I will love. Future tense, passive, I will be loved. Would you be loved? I know I will be loved, right? I will be loved. Imperfect, I was loving. Okay, there was a point in time when I was. So the imperfect, already, you know that this is dealing with the past tense, right? Was loving. I was being loved. Okay, there was a point when I was being loved, but I'm no longer being loved. Then you have the perfect, the aorist, I loved. Back to that phoneme morpheme, I loved. While the present is I love, you just add the little D right here, I loved. Past tense, simple past tense. Or I was loved, right? The perfect, I have loved. I have loved. Notice the word have is included now, right? And then I have been loved. So notice the word been continues. So here you have been, be. For the aorist is just simple past tense. Then you have been. Then for the pluperfect, I had loved, right? And then I had been loved. And for the future perfect, I will have loved, and then I will have been loved. So these are the tenses that you are going to encounter in the Greek text. Pretty much, if you understand the tenses that are here, you're going to pretty much understand exactly what's going on where the verbs are concerned in the Greek text. So let's go in the Greek text. So let's go over this again. One, you have the present tense. Then you have the future tense. Then you have perfect. When you reach to the perfect, you have the past tense. And in a sense, everything here to some degree is dealing with the past. Okay? The past, from the imperfect down, you're pretty much dealing with the past. Okay? And these are the tenses. And guess in English you have something similar. You have the past, the present, and the future. It's the same thing. It's just that the past is divided into more categories in Greek, so to speak, right? So notice how many tenses in English are formed with the present or past tense of the verb in question together with some part of will, have, or be, right? When so used, the latter are called auxiliary verbs. And the resulting combination, example, I will have been loved, are called composite tenses. Or other auxiliary verbs in English are should, would, could. Those are auxiliary or modal, M-O-D-A-L, modal verbs, right? Auxiliary or modal verbs. So Koine Greek has a much smaller number of composite tenses and only one auxiliary verb. Besides tenses, linguists also speak of aspect in describing the Greek verb system. So the term aspect here refers to the view of the action that the speaker chooses to present to the hearer. There are three categories of aspect in Greek. One, you have the imperfective, you have the perfective, and you have the aorist, right? So the imperfective aspect focuses on the process of duration of the action, right? So you could say the imperfective, one second, where was I? So the imperfective here, you're going to deal with process, right? Process of duration, right? The perfective aspect focuses on the state or condition resulting from a completed action, right? Aorist aspect focuses on the verbal idea in its entirety without commenting upon either the process or the abiding result of the action. So the aorist does not deny that these aspects may be present in keeping with its name, aoristos, so the A is a negator, meaning undefined. It simply chooses not to comment. The aorist is the normal or unmarked aspect in Greek. A deviation from the aoristic to another aspect is generally exegetically significant. So the aorist tense pretty much is the standard past tense form. That's what he's saying. A deviation from that, he says, is exegetically significant. So when you're studying Greek and you're passing a word and you see that it is something other than an aorist tense, like for instance, this is one of those. It is a perfect tense, a pluperfect, or a future perfect. Pretty much you want to pay attention to what's going on there because it's lifting now the exegetical weight as to why the author used that word. So we're going to talk a little bit about what he just said about aspect, but let me continue. He said each of these categories of aspect intersects with the Greek tenses with some overlapping. Imperfective aspect intersects with the present, imperfect, and future tenses. Aorist aspect intersects with the aorist present and future tenses. And perfective aspect intersects with the perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect aspects. This may be illustrated by the following diagram. So he's saying when it comes to aspect, there is some merging, there is some interrelationship between the different aspects. Of course, he says there is imperfective that has to do with, imperfective. Let me just write IMPF right now. That has to do with more process, right? Process or the continuation. So many persons, when they are translating the imperfect, they think of it as a continuous action. So this is just one key thing to note when you're studying Greek. Many persons see the imperfect as continuing, a continuous action. Then not only do you have the imperfect aspect, but he says you have the perfective aspect. Is that what he says? The perfective aspect, right? And the perfective aspect focuses, he says, on the state of the completed action. And the perfective aspect most times is going to be some form of the aorist, right? And that's dealing with the state of the completed action. So and we're going to go through some of the states, right? Then he says you have the general aorist that doesn't really take into case imperfective or perfective. But guess what? You're going to get translations like it's imperfective or like it's perfective when you're using the aorist. If all of this is confusing, all of this don't make sense, the key is to just take your time, watch about the video, or just slowly move ahead, because I will slowly, keep expressing and explaining everything that I just said, so you could understand some more. All right. But because it's brand new, don't burst your brain. Don't worry about it. because the understanding is going to come with continuous progress, right? So let's talk about past, present, and future. So we are dealing with aspects, right? A-S-P-E-C-T-S. What are the three aspects again? Three aspects are: one, we have the imperfective. Then two, we have the perfective. And then three, we have the aorist. A-O-R-I-S-T, aorist. Now, when you're translating the imperfective, you want to think of it as progress. P-R-O-G-R-E, progressive, or ongoing. Continuous is the same thing. When you're dealing with the perfective, you're dealing with the state of the action, but to some degree, you want to think of it as perfected. The action has been perfected, so the action has been completed. And in a sense, the aorist balances both worlds. These two worlds up here, right? The aorist balances both worlds, where you're going to get the imperfective and the perfective in the aorist. And he kind of tell you that here, guess what, my dear friends? There is no one clear-cut way to just take the aspects, because they overlap. They intersect, he says. They overlap with each other. So let's look at this a little bit more. Kind of action, right? The imperfective, notice imperfective, I was loving. Notice the ing, right? Continuous action, I was loving, right? Because you're dealing with the imperfective, you're going to want to use the word was, because it's a form of past tense, right? Past tense. All of these, to some degree, are forms of past tenses, right? And I think I don't know if I had skipped the, I had the imperfect there. It's a form of past tense, right? So in the present, I am loving, right? Imperfective. Future, I will be loving. But notice the ing continues in the imperfective, because you're thinking of ongoing action. You're thinking of process. You're thinking of continuous action. In the aorist now, which is more like a simple past tense, the perfective, I loved. My love has been perfected. No more love to give, right? Present, I love. Fine. And in the future, I will love, right? So that's the aorist. So notice I could easily translate this, I am loving, because it's a present tense, right? So it's happening currently. So that's just the nature of the aorist and the imperfective and the perfective. Context is going to tell you how to translate, how to deal with some of these words, but there is overlapping to expect, okay? And so context is going to be a guide. Sometimes it's very clear cut. If you see had or have, you're dealing with some form of the perfective, like a pluperfect or perfect or something like that. If you say was, you're dealing with the imperfect to some degree. If you say loved, you're dealing probably with the aorist, right? I will love, I will be loving. It's very close, isn't it? But the context will be a guide, because there is an overlap. So the perfective, you have the pluperfect, I had. Notice the pluperfect takes the word had, and the perfect takes the word have. I have loved. And the future perfect, I will have loved. Notice that the imperfect tense is always imperfective, he says. The aorist tense is always aoristic. What was it supposed to be? The pluperfect is pluperfect. It's perfect. And the future perfect tenses are always perfective. The present is basically imperfective, I am loving, though it may also be aorist. I love it. So I tell you, this is the overlap happening. Likewise, the future tense is sometimes imperfective, I will be loving, and sometimes aorist, I will love. It's just that you have the word be, I will be, that is added to the imperfective, but generally it's the same idea you're carrying, The context alone, here you go. The context alone conveying this information. Since the future tense is primarily concerned with the future time, its aspectual significance is less marked than the other tenses, right? No big deal there. So let's run on. The significance of tense aspect for reading Greek. Even in the early stages of learning, it is important to become aware of both the importance and the function of aspect in the Greek verb system. Unlike English, the most significant feature of tense in Greek the most significant feature of tense in Greek is kind of action. A secondary consideration of tense, and one that applies only in the indicative mood, is the time of action. So two things you're introduced to here. You're introduced to the kind of action, and then you're introduced to time of action, right? Whether it is represented as ongoing, finished, or simply as an occurrence. One and done, they would say. Hence, there are really only three tenses in Greek, as in English: past, present, and future. The other tenses are in fact merely alternative uses of these three tenses in conjunction with the three aspects: imperfective, perfective, and aoristic. In summary then, tense in Greek is determined by the writer's portrayal of the action with regard to aspect, and in the indicative mood to time. This accounts for the fact that two different authors may portray the action of the same event differently. For instance, Matthew writes that Jesus gave, look at the word edoken, which is an aorist, indicative, the loaves to the disciples, Matthew 14 and verse 9, while Mark writes that Jesus kept giving, ididu, imperfect, indicative, because imperfect is carrying what? Ongoing action, right? And because the imperfect is carrying ongoing action, then you're going to translate it with some form of ing, right? And if it was aorist, that would have been a completed action, right? But both of them communicate something slightly different, right? Here, Matthew focuses on the bare idea of the action, while Mark emphasizes the continuance, implying that the miracle took place in the very hands of Jesus. So it was as he was giving out the bread, it was multiplying in his hands. Even the same writer may portray the same action differently in different texts. Paul, for example, uses the aorist participle in reference to the resurrection of Christ when viewing it as a simple event. So Romans 8:11, and the perfect participle when emphasizing the state of Christ's risenness. 2 Timothy 2 and verse 8. Hence, the basic issue with regard to tense is always the question of how much or how little the writer wishes to say about the kind of action involved. And the word that he chooses and the way he conjugates that word. So now we go back to this word paradigm, D-I-G-M. The paradigm that the author uses to break down that word is very important, very critical, because that is going to tell you the importance of the idea that he's trying to convey. So it's important to understand what is going on, where mood is concerned, where tense is concerned, where voice is concerned, and where aspect is concerned. All right. So these you're gonna see a little bit more as you get to encounter words and to see it in play, to see it actually worked out. But right now, just keep in mind that you are already building a very solid foundation. And go back and rewatch this video. And any other video, anything you don't understand, just send me an email and I will do my best to answer you. All right? God bless and bless you richly.